The Nintendo Wii, the motion-controlled maverick of a console that had everyone from age 9 to 99 suing a remote to have them say, "Who do you think you are? I am!" had its share of hits, but even so, some bangers didn't quite get their due. Here are some Nintendo Wii hidden gems that should get your remote wagging. Wait, what? Mad World is the most obligatory underrated Wii gem there is, earning equal parts fame and infamy with its mix of grisly hyperviolence and monochrome comic book art style. When initially released in 2009, Mad World's bloody aesthetic helped it stick out from the more family-friendly Wii crowd, but its arcade-style, high-score-centric gameplay and non-stop thrills made it a cult hit. Mad World takes place in a city that's been seized by violent terrorists and converted into a lethal game show called Death Watch, wherein citizens battle to fight and kill each other in order to claim a vaccine for a deadly disease. Imagine Takeshi's Castle, but a bit more chill. Players control Jack, a mysterious man with a chainsaw attached to his arm, in case you thought this game would have any subtlety whatsoever. The voice cast boasts heavy hitters like Stephen Bloom, John DiMaggio, and Greg Proops. Sadly, this explosive debut did not manifest into a lasting legacy for the game pretty much whatsoever, with no sequels ever developed on the Wii or any other Nintendo consoles. A legacy sequel, Anarchy Reigns, did come to Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2012, but only Ash is a fan of Anarchy Reigns. God bless you, Ash. La Mulana is a side-scrolling platform adventure game where players raid tombs with the help of their trusty whip. I guess you could say it's a real whipper. The gameplay is a combination of Tomb Raider, Spelunky and Castlevania, with a retro art style meant to evoke the look of vintage MSX games. Originally released for PC in 2007, La Mulana got a remake and facelift for the Wii in 2011. In addition to a lighter difficulty curve, the Wii version brings new bosses and new puzzles for an optimized experience. Beyond the loving and specific parodying of the MSX, La Mulana sticks the landing with fun, fast and surprising environmental gameplay. Secret traps and bizarre puzzles make every screen a treat in the game, providing a premium retro gaming experience which is now, in a way, double retro. So it's like retroception, maybe? La Mulana and its sequel, La Mulana 2, are both available on the Switch right now, in a good old victory for game preservation. Initially released for PC in 2009 and ported to the Wii with new motion controls, And Yet It Moves is a visually stunning puzzle platformer. In a world that looks like collage made from paper craft cutouts, players use the Wii's motion controls to spin the world around their character and open up new paths of exploration. The motion control gimmick sometimes ran a little wild with Wii games, but in And Yet It Moves, the ability to spin the world is a tight focus mechanic that never gets out of control or loses its way. Every environment is full of incredible detail that still looks mesmerizing by modern standards, and while the puzzles can naturally lead to some head-scratching and aimless experimenting, the journey is well worth any minor speed bumps you might experience. There were plenty of other Wii games that wanted to bend your mind with motion controls and make manipulating the environment feel both trippy and intuitive, but And Yet It Moves actually managed to fulfill that promise. Deal or no deal, it ain't. This entry is unique because it also qualifies for being in an underrated PSP game list. If you want to see that video, let us know down below. In the original Mercury Meltdown released on the PSP in 2006, you have a simple goal: navigate a blob of mercury through an increasingly complex series of obstacle courses and reach the finish line with at least some of your mercury intact. Different tracks may split your mercury apart, forcing you to keep track of the various different drops as you race to the finish line. Mercury Meltdown Revolution, which slid onto the Wii in 2007, and it must be said, not very easily out of my mouth. Mercury Meltdown Revolution try saying that 3 times fast anyway, brought new tracks and naturally new motion controls onto Nintendo's motion control machine, and the result is a match made in motion control heaven. The races become hectic scrambles to the end as you try to keep your balance and keep your bearings on the track. The lava lamp, remember them? Lava lamps, bring them back. Inspired visuals make every track feel kinetic and enticing, elevating Revolution beyond being just a simple port on a console that, to be fair, had its fair share of ports, not all of which would manage to marry their gameplay with motion controls as beautifully as Mercury Meltdown did. Yeah, it might look a bit mobile gamey today, but give it a shot. It's actually a real game, unlike most mobile games.
I'm over here.
Despite boasting a wide array of characters with unique designs and abilities, it's shocking that there's only been one fighting game in the Castlevania series. Developed for the Nintendo Wii, Castlevania Judgment is a 3D arena fighter that features 13 characters from across the entire franchise, such as Alucard and both Simon and Trevor Belmont. Initial reviews of Castlevania Judgment were pretty harsh, but the game itself is a pretty fun Power Stone-esque romp as you run around the arena collecting items and summoning in creatures. A lot of reviewers felt that the game's controls were somewhat imprecise, though if you're willing to put the time in to learn the game's combos and tech, there's actually a good amount to sink your teeth into here. Pun somewhat intended. However, the real main selling point of Castlevania Judgment comes from its character design. Konami and Eighting brought in manga artist Takeshi Obata, best known for his incredible work on the Death Note series, to create new costumes for the Castlevania cast. The Castlevania? Never mind. The results are some of the best designs in the entire series, helping cement Castlevania Judgment as one of the most underrated games across the entire Wii library. Do you think Castlevania Judgment is a pretty underrated entry in the Castlevania pantheon? Be sure to let us know down below.
Zale, enemy reinforcements. They're sniping us. Yurik, destroy that with your magic. Okay, cover me.
The Last Story is a JRPG that plays to the strengths of the genre as a whole. It's a high fantasy setting, a lovable cast of party members teaming together to discover the meaning of friendship and kill God, that's always a bonus, and a battle system that seems simple but lies hidden depth and complexity. Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, directed and co-wrote The Last Story, with series mainstay Nobuo Uematsu composing music for The Last Story as well. It's fair to say that the game was in pretty much the best possible hands, and you can tell once you sit down and play the thing. Combat is tight and exhilarating, the settings and music feel like distinct versions of classic JRPG moments, and as a whole it feels like its own individual idea in a crowded field of competitors. Released in Japan in 2011, the powers that be at Nintendo initially didn't think there was any reason to localize The Last Story to the rest of the world. A fan campaign called Operation Rainfall urged Nintendo to reconsider, and as a consequence of such enormously vocal fan support, Nintendo gave in and localized The Last Story, along with fellow in-demand JRPGs Pandora's Tower and a little title called Xenoblade Chronicles. F-Zero and Wave Race Hive, we must arise. We know what we must do. Mushroom Men The Spore Wars, along with its DS prequel Mushroom Men Rise of the Fungi, bloomed in 2008, bringing a loopy-ass sci-fi story of plants and fungi granted life by a strange meteor, and the turf wars that came about from all of these suddenly intelligent creatures. Mushroom Men definitely feels like a product of its time, with all of the edgy humour and irreverence of a mid-2000s title that traffics in jokes about mushrooms. In addition to these stonerific counterculture vibes, Mushroom Men The Spore Wars has music from Les Claypool of the band Primus, giving everything a truly spacey, off-kilter energy unlike anything else in gaming at the time, or really anything since. Still, the game's stories of rapidly emerging societies of mushrooms banding together and declaring war on each other as their world rapidly warps and mutates around them is thrilling stuff, and the eerie levels full of plant life gone awry are always a treat to behold. Mushroom Men The Spore Wars had all the makings of a true cult hit, with its solid gameplay, fundamentals and kooky atmosphere, but for now it remains stuck in the memory hall of underrated Wii games. Don't be a kombucha mushroom person, sitting around all day. Let your mother play Mushroom Men.
ASE device to hack into the main computer.
Before Splatoon made blasting ink across the battlefield an almost essential experience for Nintendo fans, the House of Mario didn't have many franchises that could appeal to the hardcore shooter fanbase. Red Steel, you were there, weren't you? Red Steel, you're about. The Conduit, though, released on the Wii in 2008, made a valiant effort to change that. Players were dropped into a high-octane sci-fi storyline as they shot their way through hordes of alien invaders called the Drudge. The main draw of the Conduit is most certainly in its multiplayer though. Voice chat was available via the rarely utilised Wii Speak peripheral, and the Conduit boasted an impressive 13 bespoke multiplayer modes. Up to 12 players could play together online across 7 different multiplayer maps. Visually, the Conduit holds up pretty well, especially for the Wii, which often struggled to compete with its more graphically complex competitors. The Conduit did get a sequel, The Conduit 2, in 2010, but the franchise hasn't had any other developments in over a decade, which is a real shame because there were some extremely strong bones here that could have flourished into more fresh FPS games on the Wii or even the Wii U. Of all the underrated Wii games featured on this list, Elebits, released in 2006, feels perhaps most like the one that should have resonated more with the Wii's customer base. It has cutesy, memorable mascot characters in the titular Elebits, which are little electric gremlins that live inside appliances, that's nice, and has a fun and intuitive use of the Wii's motion controls, with players using their remote like a gravity gun to seize on objects in their environment and shake the Elebits out of them. Levels go from single rooms to full houses and sections of a street, as the scope and scale of Elebit hunting balloons out into exciting and chaotic new heights. Collecting more Elebits brings more and more power to each area, leading to an organic way of measuring progress in seeing the levels come more and more back to life as you scout the landscape. Elebits also had a robust level editor mode, allowing players to create their own sandboxes to toss around and hunt through. Players could upload their levels via the Wii's online Wii Connect 24 service to download and play other players' levels. While this sounds obvious by today's standards, Nintendo was slow to get on the online train, and Elebits was there from the very beginning. We're still trying to figure out why Little Big Planet meets Chibi Robo meets Pikmin didn't find much of an audience at all, really. In an alternate world, instead of Rabbids or Minions, these lovable Elebits took the world by storm. The Wii had a lot of imaginative adventures, from the gravity-defying Super Mario Galaxy to the motion-controlled swashbuckling of Skyward Sword. And yet, one underrated Wii game, a pinnacle of diamond in the rough gaming if ever there was one, is the extremely grounded Deadly Creatures, released in 2009. Players alternate between controlling a scorpion and a tarantula, battling each other, evading a sinister rattlesnake, and interfering with the efforts of 2 unscrupulous treasure hunters who are played by Dennis Hopper and Billy Bob Thornton. The entire enterprise feels like a sleek B-movie with 2-bit crooks and creature feature scares that comes from the bug-eyes view of the 2 protagonists. Gameplay is varied, with the tarantula taking a more stealth-orientated approach and the scorpion's levels are more action focused, so you never get too sick of doing the same thing over and over again before changing over to the other character. The novel experience of controlling an arachnid as you crawl on walls and maneuver through layered environments never gets that old really, and it's a true shame that more players didn't take this wild ride when they had the chance. THQ Nordic, known back then as just Nordic Games, were looking at re-releasing this a little while back, but now they're probably too busy looking back on all of their terrible decisions. And that was our video looking back at the Wii's hidden gems, at least some of them. The Wii's library is pretty interesting. There's a lot of crap on there, let's be honest, a lot of crap, but if you dig deep enough you can find some real hidden bangors. What other Wii hidden gems would you recommend? Be sure to let us know down below. I've been Jamie for Cultured Vultures, and thank you for watching.